Sound great, and we're ready to go live as soon as you gavel us in.
All right, I'm holding the gavel. I'm gonna hit it at 6:30. We are still waiting on one virtual participant and one potential in-person participant, but we do have a quorum regardless. So we're just gonna get cracking because we've got a pretty full agenda, including some votes, which is exciting. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the November 12th, 2025 meeting of the City of Revere Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. My name is Joe Gravelisi. I serve as the mayor's appointee as chair of the board. And this is our regular monthly meeting. I'll begin this meeting with a roll call of the members. So myself, Joe Gravelisi, I'm present. Matt Wolfer, I see, is not here. I know he was having some travel issues. By the way, if you're here virtually, just unmute yourself and shout out when you hear your name. Anayo Uswaki.
Here.
Okay. Deb Frank.
I'm here.
Lori Manzo. I do not see here. Layla Pietri.
Present.
Okay. Judy Gosselin.
Here.
And Dean Harris.
Here.
Great. So I do note that with 6 members present, including 2 virtual, we do have the presence of a quorum. So we'll move forward. First item in your packets is ratification of the October minutes. I sent those out, so if anyone had any issues or questions, I assume not, but if you do, feel free to raise them now. Otherwise, can I ask for a motion to accept those minutes?
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay, those have been ratified. We'll now move on to our finances check-in for the treasurer. So we'll kick that over to you, and then I'll have some updates on this front as well.
Good evening, everyone. This is the current budget statement as provided to me by Sutan Newton from the Revere Budget Office. The current balance of the Affordable Housing Trust Committee is $663,624.29. This balance is reflective of the approximately $167,000 that is encumbered for the next 2 payments to the new neighborhood developers. The interest posted to this period of this account is $3,329.95. Lastly, there are some pending payments for the Senior Citizens Home Repairs Program that will be paid this week, resulting in a further balance reduction of $10,625.19. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So a couple finance-related notes. One we talked about last month, but just wanted to state for the record that it's official, which is that we received the $250,000 from the developers of the Madera development on Revere Beach. That was a condition of their approval for their project, and so we received those checks last week, and they have been deposited. So I don't know if the balance would reflect that yet. I don't think so.
So this is the balance as of today.
Yeah.
So I wanted to because I read that
Yeah.
there was some transactions pending and whatnot, I waited till this morning to ask her, so this is what it reflects to today.
Perfect. So I believe that will be replenished a bit once we get that 250, which will be great. Either way, wonderful to see that, and hopefully that is the beginning of additional support from development projects that come on board to support affordable housing initiatives. As Anayo mentioned, the money coming out of the account comes from the Senior Citizen Home Repairs Program. We've had a few that have already paid out, which I'll give a full update on when we get to that on the agenda, which has been super exciting. But then also, we do have, there's a little bit of financial clarification that needs to happen, but half of the budget for the Senior Repairs Program is going to be paid for out of a donation that came in from former Speaker DeLeo, which we all mentioned, and we're really grateful for that. The mechanics of how that's going to work, I have to talk to the Treasurer's Office about, because we can only pay out of one account, so the money's coming out of the Affordable Housing Trust, and then I think the money would come into the Housing Trust to replenish for the $25,000, is I believe how that's going to work, but I'll confirm that with you. We'll find some time to talk to the CFO's office. But that hasn't been reflected in our balance either, because that mechanic still needs to be worked out. But when we think about budgeting, that's useful information. The other financial note I want to mention is, and I'll be kicking it over to Anayo and Judy to talk more about some of our fundraising efforts, but we did have outreach for something that we're working on to try to add a small additional balance. So from the Revere Housing Coalition group, so they were an advocacy group that has done really incredible work in the city to advocate for affordable housing, to advocate for some zoning changes, to promote affordability in units, and also really to advocate, frankly, for the existence of this board and of the trust fund. So we're really grateful for the work they did to kind of pave the way for what we do. Their activities have kind of sunset in recent years, and as of now, they're not active, and they do have a small balance of about $4,000, and we have respectfully asked if they would consider making that donation of what's remaining. The chair, Laura Holmes, has been expressed some interest in that, and we talked about ways that we would use the funding to support some of their goals. That's up to them, but we're really grateful even for the consideration, whether we get a part of what's remaining or none, but they just consider it, or if they do it. Really, really grateful for the Revere Housing Coalition for all the work they've done in the city, and for their consideration and outreach to us for supporting our work. So, any questions about any of those items? Okay, well then I'm going to kick it to Anayo, if you can lead the way on some of the fundraising conversation that you had referenced.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Joe. Yeah, so basically, I'd like to provide an update to the subcommittee of fundraising. Basically, when last we spoke and worked, we were putting together a database that we were able to identify financial institutions that would offer grants that aligned with our goals here at the Affordable Housing Trust Committee, and as well as we tracked when those grants were due. To extend that conversation or to advance those efforts, I've since added to the database by providing or putting together a group of possible 501c3s that we could reach out to. And what today I will briefly kind of talk about is ways we can kind of put together some target dates of activities for next year, and also some short-term goals we can look at. Okay, so one of the key things I noticed when we were looking at the grants last year was that a majority of the grants required a partnership with the 501c3. And so that was kind of a challenge for us, at least. That's why we couldn't go ahead and apply for some of these grants. What I have done, and since they proposed, is actually come up with an agenda for next year so that we can create these partnerships at the beginning of the year, and then sort of put together a targeted campaign for these grants. What I mean by that specifically is that there are 4 specific items that I will propose. One, establish community partnerships with Revere to work towards these affordable goals. So that's the first thing. And I put that date between December and February. So in between now and February, I'll be reaching out, in our group, we'll be reaching out with targeted emails to these organizations, and we can add more so that we can start create these partnerships. The second of the 4-point plan is, once we have these partnerships, we would basically have we would codify specific goals, such that when let's say we choose to write a grant or go for a funding activity, we specifically have targeted how much we'd like to raise, what are our aims, and how this would benefit the community. And then third is implementation, right? So the reason why this is heavier at the beginning of the year, February, March, is when I'd like us to have codify these goals, is because a lot of the grants are due May and April. And so ideally, we would like to have these partnerships established and these goals codified by May, April-ish, so that we can at least start the process of filling out some of these grants. And then the last part of the goal is analysis and review of lessons learned. So we would take a look at what accomplishments we've done and where we can grow. And I was targeting this towards, let's say, August, September. So ideally, the point of this effort is to essentially expand and maybe offset some of the burden that the public has on some of the activities that we do. So what does that mean? These short-term goals. The first, obviously, is to create these partnerships. There are some that actually we've already started the ball rolling. One, and this is with Laura Christopher, with this affordable housing or this community land trust. And she came and presented sometime at the beginning, maybe it's May or August of this year or so. And what I will do is reach out again to her and see how far they've advanced with that tax status. Because one of the last things they talked about was how far they were with establishing this 501c3. And then we can, perhaps formalize or make more concrete some of our joint efforts. And I'll follow up with her in that group. And there are a few others, because they have not presented themselves here. I won't call their names out publicly, but I will, with the committee's approval, obviously reach out to them and say, okay, how would you, propose these joint partnerships? And I hope to have this wrapped up December, February. So I think this May or November, February, or November, December, January, February, try to have all of that kind of like cemented. So we have these partnerships. And then essentially the last part of the short-term goals is we have great progress and great results from the senior home repairs program and this first-time homeowners assistance program. And ideally, we can craft somewhat of a draft of this to present to financial institutions that would help see that we had a great start, and perhaps so basically, grant writing itself need not necessarily be specifically filling out an application. Some of it simply can be just petitioning for additional support from these grants. And now that we have a track record of success, we can go out, and so we need not wait till the deadlines of February, March, whatever. And so that was the second short-term goal. So the first short-term goal is to make these contacts, these email campaign, and the second short-term goal is sort of draft our own sort of like proposal that we can either leverage in a formal grant writing, or we can just initiate to these banks ourselves. And that's where I'll pause for now.
Thank you for that update. That was really helpful and extensive, which I appreciate. Would love to ask you to do a couple follow-ups. One is, let's get a subcommittee conversation on the books, and if you could just spearhead that after the meeting, we could find some time to really follow up on all of this and divide up tasks. And then if you could also maybe help us lead the way, and I'll obviously help with this, on putting together this narrative about the senior repairs program, tell the story a little bit, and I'll add some color commentary, and we'll put it together and kind of use that as a template for some of what you're talking about. I think that would be great. I do have a couple institutional partners that I'm overdue to set up meetings with, and that I'd like to tag you in on those conversations as well as anyone else that wants to be in on it. So, great update. Thank you for that. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add or any questions on the fundraising side. No.
Thank you.
Making sure I'm checking the Zoom as well. All right, seeing none, we will move on to our senior repairs program update. So it's both in front of you and then also sent via email for those that are digital, but I'll just talk through it a little bit. This has been a great success. It's something that I'm really excited. It took up a lot of, I say this in a good way, a lot of staff time, for us, because there was a lot of interest, a lot of applicants. The questions came fast and furious. A few of you were so nice enough to join for the launch meeting of the senior center when we had a big crowd of people asking questions. Ultimately, we got 26 actual applications submitted for the program within a week. Yeah, definitely. Like everyone's efforts led to that. I'm confident, that if we had left the application open for like 2 weeks, we probably would have got 50 or 60 because there were a lot of people that were interested in it. We're trying to put together their quotes and things like that. I'll get into the logistics of kind of where we're at on awarding the money, but I just want to share some feedback, both that I received and then also that I'm just kind of picking up on from the process. I think that I do think that ultimately the rules that we all set together were really fair and appropriate in terms of like it's going to be the first fully complete application with everything in, time-stamped and received, just because there was really no other fair way to do it. We only had the funding to support a limited number of projects. We knew we were gonna get more applications than we were gonna get. And like, it wouldn't have been fair, I think, to hold someone's spot if they submitted a partial application, or to have, you know, some other sort of way. I think we had to do it the way we did. I think, really grateful that the senior center launched it with their resource fair, because it allowed us to introduce people to JM Services, who they have kind of a agreement with the senior center to do free estimates and quotes for seniors. The work isn't free, they have to pay for the work, but they're able to get a quote, which even that can be really difficult and challenging. I'll say that I don't have a solution to this, but I think a big challenge for us to overcome, you know, for us to do this again, is the fact that it is difficult even to get quotes, you know, for like a smaller dollar project. Contractors are so busy and so in demand right now that unless you're going to them with a $50,000 project, you know, they might not even want to take the time to come out and give you an estimate, let alone put you on the schedule for work. So if there's a way we can grease that a little bit, like by pitching to a certain approved, like, I don't know, there's got to be ways we can do it to try to kind of smooth that process out, because we did have, you know, some people submit their applications and they really well documented the challenges they had and the things they wanted to fix, but under the terms of the program, until they got a professional quote, you know, we couldn't approve them, which we had to treat everyone fairly, but at the same time, it's still unfortunate, you know, to see that, oh, well, there's obviously a documented need here, and I believe them that they've called 7, you know, 7 roofers or 7 plumbers or 7, and have had trouble getting someone scheduled. So senior center's done great work with that, but that's something that we can think about if we can help with that, you know, in some way moving forward. I think the online application, again, was kind of like a necessary evil, you know, in that I know that we have folks that are technologically, like, it's not their favorite thing. We were able to offset that by having people make appointments with the digital navigators at the senior center. But one thing that I would like to improve upon for next time, and again, we'd have to figure out how to do this, is the fact that if someone scheduled an appointment with the digital navigator and it was for even the next day, so many applications came in that they kind of lost out on that. And so I think that we had a few people that filled out and submitted applications that they had appointments for. And by that point, all the money had been awarded and they all ended up, you know, on a waiting list. So I think that when we do it over again, that's something to think about, is how do we maybe balance that? Open to ideas, you know, I think we did it as fairly as we could. But we want to make sure that we're just thinking through all these questions about equity and fairness of how to, you know, run it properly. So that's some of the feedback that I have on the process of how it played out. Obviously, if others have feedback that they heard or that they want to offer, but the application itself was a labor of love from everyone. I think a lot of you were in like 18 different meetings about it, about putting together the language and crafting the questions. And so we're just really grateful for everyone's work on this. You did a great thing. I mean, this is something that's already making an impact and I'll tell you some stories in a moment. But any other thoughts on the process or feedback on kind of how it went so far?
Were there any, like, specifics that you saw, like a trend of what people were coming in for, like around bathroom, you know, the grab bars and
Yeah.
all the other things? Was there any?
Yeah, so
Trend?
grab bars, comfort height toilets, but then also a lot of roof work. A lot of roof work, where those are the ones where it would be like the big, really expensive project that we're only covering a piece of, but the piece that we're covering can help make it feasible. I did have, you know, obviously, without sharing names, one person who was very nice, who got approved and we supported her project. It was for her roof repair. And she said to me, you know, I never thought I'd live long enough here to have to fix my roof 3 times. So I didn't really plan for that. So glad the city was able to help out with it. And I was like, well, I'm really glad that you did, you know. And she has been in that house since, I think it was like 1962 or something. And so she already made 2 roof repairs on that house. And the 3rd one came around and she just needed that little bit of extra help to do it. So I was glad we were able to do that. We did do one of the like chairlift systems for someone for like wheelchair to go up and downstairs. But several of the bathroom projects, like the comfort height toilet and the grab bars, that was pretty common. there was a mishmash of other things too, like someone got their heating, tank replaced, the oil tank. There was some other HVAC work. So it was a mix, but those were the most common, types of projects for sure. Yeah. Make sure I'm paying attention to the screen as well if anyone on Zoom had comments on the process or questions or anything like that. Otherwise, I'll start talking through where we're at.
No comments.
All right. Okay, so where we're at, we got 26 applications. So I mentioned that we have 12 that are conditionally approved, and that brings me to a vote that I want to bring us to tonight. So we've paid out 5 awards for a total of $19,525.19. I think some of the checks maybe did or did not, were not reflected in the total, but that's the amount that we've actually authorized to this point. We have 6 others that have signed their contract. So basically, after we approve their application and see their quote and approve it, they sign a contract that outlines the terms of the program. It says that they're going to submit us their final invoice from the contractor, and we reimburse them the cost of the project or $5,000, whichever is smaller. And so we have 6 that have signed their contracts, but we haven't paid out the work yet. 1 because we haven't had a chance to go over and just inspect it, and then the others because they haven't completed it yet, or at least if they've completed it, they haven't told us they completed it. And that's a total of $28,548. So for a total between those of $48,073. And then we have an additional project that, so I'll tell you again, for the most part, this went really smoothly. There was only one thing that happened where we actually had someone submitted an online quote to complete their application. They had done the application already, and they didn't have the quote, and they submitted the quote to me via email, literally as I was meeting in person with someone else who came in to bring their quote. So we are going by like basically when documents are received in person, where I've time-stamped them to have an accurate, and I have like it completely listed of exactly what minute and second everything came in to prevent any confusion. That being said, in the interest of complete fairness and transparency, I don't know if I immediately stamped this person's as the second they walked in, or if we talked a little bit first and then took the time down. So because these 2 essentially came in at like the exact same time and they had everything completed, I have a conditional approval out for 1 and wanted to ask if we, I don't want to get in the habit of doing this for we, approve X dollars for a project and then go back and add more because we want to make sure that we're budgeting, smartly. But I'm going to make a motion and request that we authorize an additional $5,000 for the program for 2 reasons. One is to basically cover this situation of the 2 people that were basically equal, like it was within a minute, if anything, with some lack of clarity there. Then also, we already have a little bit of wiggle room, if you see, because a couple of the projects came in under the $5,000. And so that means that we might have like 1,200 or 1,300 or even more, like 2,000 or 2,500 or something, depending on the way the others go, to fund someone that's on the waiting list. And I think it would be great if we could do that, because we have 8 applicants that completed everything and they're on the wait list because they came in after everyone else was already approved. They've all been informed that, if we expand or repeat this program in the future, they're going to get first crack at it. But then also we'll go to them if for some reason someone doesn't complete their project or if they come in under budget or whatever the case may be. So, like I said, I know we want to try to make a budget and stick to it, but I think given these circumstances and frankly the success and interest in the program, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize an additional $5,000 so that we can cover that additional person and then have a little bit left over for the wait list. So
Second.
great. Can I ask all in favor of that?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, all right. Well, so
Good job.
the ayes have it, so from that,
I do have one comment. Is it possible for any of those folks to share their experience with the program?
Yeah.
That would be, like, the stories you mentioned, they're
Yeah.
amazing. The railing and the accommodations for the bathroom, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, essentially the reason
It
why
is
a lot
really
of us are
exciting,
here.
and
And if
w-
they share that, then, one, it'll spread, and then we
Definitely.
can, help others, so that's.
Yeah, so we're in the process of contacting actually the folks that have been the beneficiary now to see if they're willing to maybe take a picture, have like a news article about it. We don't want to put anyone on the spot. We didn't do this for like publicity. But at the same time, if they're willing to do it, we'd love to do that. So it's a really great idea and something that we'd love to do, just to
Yeah,
put a
it's not
spotlight on
obligated.
it.
It's not
Yeah.
obligating. It's just a heartwarming
Totally.
story. I think it's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not to say
definitely.
we are championing any
Yeah.
pushing up our chest. It's just that I smiled internally when you started to talk about the folks who were helping and what they were actually doing. That's amazing. So yeah,
It is great, and we really ran the gamut in like types of projects, and we had some like younger seniors, we had some older seniors. I think someone was like 90, someone else was 62. So we had that whole range, that we approved for, and all different needs, right, based on kind of where people are in life, and really just appreciative of everyone's hard work, because I know that it took a lot of months of iterations and planning and getting it right, but that's why we tried to make sure we get it right, so that when we had it ready to go, it could go pretty smoothly. Not saying there were zero hiccups, but, we were able to work through them and have policies in place, and I think it went really well. And so now with that extra 5,000 approved, which
Good
we're
job.
really grateful for, we've got a little bit of wiggle room to fund this one additional person, and then also, we should be able to get to at least one person on the wait list, I think, even if it's partial funding, even if they get $1,500, I think that would be a help. So thank you all
and
for
we can
that.
keep the folks that are on the wait list for next year.
Yep,
So,
yep,
yeah.
exactly. And in addition to keeping them on the waiting list for, a repeat of the program, I'm also gonna let them know about any charitable resources that might exist. I know we've talked about Rebuilding Together Boston as a nonprofit that does some of this kind of work. And now they already have all their materials together, so they have something to submit. I don't know what their, how much budget they have or how much work they're gonna do in Revere, but it helps to know that there's already people that have their projects kind of lined up and ready to go. So, the last piece I just wanted to share, just for, everyone's information. So we had 8 that were on the wait list, and then we had an additional 8 that were declined, 7 because they didn't submit some piece of information, whether it be income statements or a contractor quote or something like that. Usually the contractor quote, and then 1 who they were not eligible just due to house to age. And then we had a few other people that asked if they'd be eligible, found out they wouldn't be, and ended up not submitting an application. And that was just due to income guidelines or age guidelines, or like things we talked about where if there's adult children in the house that have income, their income counts, towards that. And that's just based on keeping everything consistent with HUD guidelines and all the programs that we do. It's full household income is what, counts towards it. So, any other questions about the senior repairs program, comments, feedback?
Great job.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate everyone's help with this. It was a great success. And by next month, we should have all the rest of them probably paid out, and we can share some more stories. So that'll be great. Moving on, for those that were not at the last meeting, I think a few people were missing. I just wanted to make sure everyone had the text of the ADU loan program application that we approved. There's really no additional work that needs to be done on this from our side. It's just, we're gonna work to get the application up after New Year's. I'm thinking probably closer to spring, like February-ish, once we get back into construction season. But there is time to review this if anyone proposes any amendments or changes. As we know, the senior repairs went through a lot of iterations even after we approved it. So feel free to take a look at this, but this is something that we're continuing to work towards.
Yep.
Any questions about that? Great. And then the other thing that we approved at the last meeting, and I wanted to just get the text out to, in case anyone didn't get it, was the text for this open call for proposals. I will raise my hand and say, my intention was we were actually gonna put this out before this meeting and I did not do that. We got a little bit, we were pretty busy with the senior repairs program, and so this got put on the back burner for a little bit. But I will put this out before the next meeting, and we'll advertise it as an open call for proposals for those interested in submitting for sort of open projects that they're asking for support for, like the ones that we've talked about, like the Ocean, 110 Ocean that we approved, and then some others that we didn't approve, just creating that fair process. Any questions about that? Okay. So moving on, oops, sorry about that. A couple updates on our first-time homebuyer programs and resources. First of all, we have had 2 additional recipients of down payment assistance since our last meeting, so that's exciting. I know it had been kind of slow going a little bit for the reasons that we've talked about, but now we've gotten a few, so that's great. We still have several that have been kind of conditionally approved, but they're waiting to purchase a home, to get into a purchase and sale for something that is in Revere and is in their price range. We mentioned there was supposed to be a workshop last week with M&T Bank, first-time homebuyer workshop. There ended up being a scheduling conflict with the schools for that, so we postponed that to December 6th. So you should have all received that email. So apologies for any confusion for anyone that was planning on attending last week, but we're excited about that. And I've been in touch with Deb about hosting one with Metro Credit Union, and we're maybe going to do that in partnership with Chelsea, so I'll keep everyone updated as that goes. And we've let some other banks know as well that we're available and interested to host some of these first-time homebuyer workshops. Last but not least, we've talked about like affordable condo sales, affordable housing sales, and so one step that we've made as a city to try to make this information a little bit easier to access is the creation of a consolidated like interest list. So it's not a waiting list per se, but it is an interest list, which I sent out a sign-up form to anyone who's applied for down payment assistance, anyone who was on the waiting list for those 133 Salem affordable condos, and anyone who's basically ever emailed our office and said, tell me about down payment assistance, or tell me about like affordable condo sales. Reached out to all of them, sent a sign-up form, and asked people to basically submit if they want to be notified when affordable condos hit the market. And so we've had a few people sign up already. We're going to advertise it and try to grow that list and just have it as like a centralized resource for folks to know. And we had our first chance to use that list because one of the condos at 133 Salem, the affordable condos, they've reached actually the end of the initial lottery list, and so now they're putting it out for others that might be interested. So we're getting the word out there that there's an affordable unit available in that building. So that's our efforts to grow that. Any questions about that process, about the coordinated list?
Excuse me, Joe, in the email, they say December 4.
What's that?
December 4 or December 6?
Sorry, did I get the date wrong? It's a Thursday, December 4th, that's right. Yep, December 4th, it's a Thursday. Thank you for that. You know what? It was supposed to be November 6th. That's why I got confused. Yep, thank you for that. Thank you for the catch. So I mentioned 133 Salem. The next thing I want to update you on is, we've talked about this 291 Revere Street building that was under the auspices of the Malden Redevelopment Authority that transferred control to the city. And we do have 2 units in that building that are about to go up for sale, affordable units. So that'll be happening imminently. We've been in touch with the brokers for that. And so we really want to use that consolidated list and then also advertise in the Journal and get the word out to try to make sure that Revere residents have an opportunity to purchase. As we've discussed, under the rules of these affordable deed-restricted condos, the owner can sell it to anyone they want as long as it's below the maximum price and the person meets the income requirements. But we've tried to, incentivize owners to work with the city. We kind of take some of the load off of them by doing the advertising, verifying people's income eligibility and things like that. But then also B, through some potential financial incentives. One of which is there's a 1.5% administrative fee that you're supposed to pay when you complete an affordable condo sale. And with the permission of the trust board, which I forget if it was last meeting or the one before, we're gonna waive that for folks that work with us to resell, just to take, these are people that are selling affordable units, right? They're not making a ton of money off of them, and they themselves are moderate income individuals. We're gonna waive it if they work with us, right, and list it. They don't have to sell it to a Revere resident, but at least give Revere residents kind of that first crack, first opportunity to apply for the unit, to tour the unit. If they want to do their own thing and just sell it to whoever, they can. But we're going to offer this waiver of the fee, if they work with us and kind of go through our process and go through our listing. And I've attached kind of a generic version of the email that I've sent to some of the brokers, kind of outlining the terms of our home ownership sale policy that you guys can review, and I apologize for getting that to you late. But it shows the information that we share, right? So this is the maximum price you can sell the unit for. This is the income limits of who you can sell the unit to. And then these are the steps that we're gonna go through to try to list it for Revere residents. The last piece that I wanted to talk about with this, which I included on this draft, but, I know we want to bring it to a vote, is I'd like to authorize a small pool of funds to be made available, which we can replenish, I would say, on an either annually or on an as-needed basis, which would probably be less than annually, based on how infrequently these sales happen, of $4,000 to support some closing cost assistance on both sides for transactions that are a sale to a Revere resident, where we can help support just some of the closing costs, in addition to the down payment assistance that they're probably gonna get based on eligibility, if they choose to apply for it. My thought was $4,000 frankly, could match a donation that we're hopefully gonna receive, knock on wood, so that kind of can offset it on the budget. But that would also basically provide enough for sure for us to at least support like 4 sales. And it seems like based on historical trends, that would be a lot for 1 year. Like the fact that there's 2 is kind of surprising. It seems like they don't come up that often. But if we do get a bunch and we're able to support several people through this, I think that would be positive. So want to open this up for questions, see if anyone has questions about.
Is it 4,000 per transaction?
No, 4,000 total is like a pool that we kind of authorize or encumber within our budget that we're gonna set aside for doing
Thank you.
this as transactions come up. Yeah.
Does it have to be cash, or could it be their time, let's say an attorney or somebody like that doing the closing? Can that?
So just to be clear, I envision this as more covering some of like the fees that are mandatory as part of like filing, with the state and different things like that. I'm not sure I understand the question, I'm sorry.
There's closing attorneys, and what I was thinking is if they could, do their time, offer time in order to help in the program.
They could, but I don't envision us paying for that. Sorry, I apologize,
They
yeah.
would give their times in lieu of, they would donate time, so maybe they could just say they help.
Yeah, I think you need to. I would welcome that, but I don't envision us
Okay.
putting the.
I was just
funds
looking at
aside
different
for that.
options.
Yeah, I hope that
Okay.
that's, yeah. Any other questions?
All right, so just a follow-up to
Yeah.
that, I think you were referring to in-kind donation. Basically, if, a lawyer or whomever, which attorney fees are pretty expensive, they might be able, and that would sort of be included with the 4,000. What I think Joe's referring to is like cash and, a pool that can deal with some of the other sort of administrative or application costs, specifically related to the signing of the deal. I think the other question I have is 4,000 is the pool, but how would that be allocated per transaction? Would it be only a third of it or a fourth of it would be offered to first?
I think that that's something we can discuss. I would say my inclination is let's put a maximum of 1,000 per
Because
transaction.
these closing costs unfortunately can be really
They can,
expensive. And
yeah.
and I can see 4,000 gobbled up in one transaction. That's why I was,
So I would say maybe if we make them, I would propose putting a limit of 1,000
I was
per-
actually thinking 4,000 is too small. Could we go
Okay.
with 8 or 10? Because again, I'm not saying that, one, we have the budget for it,
Yep.
and it's just simply,
Sure.
so, you know, you want to certainly help, but we want to help, right? If the closing cost is anywhere from 10,000 per person, and we're only going to give them, let's say, again, I'm just throwing like $1,000, that's nice and helpful, but if we have the budget for a little more, I just essentially saying, I think 4,000 might be a bit
Okay.
too small, but this is up for the
Yeah, no,
up
I
to the
think
committee.
we
'Cause
can
it's
entertain
so
that.
expensive with some of these closing costs that we'd only be able to help maybe 1 or 2 people with
Sure.
4,000, I think. So I would propose like 10,000, but,
Okay.
because I'm looking at our budget, I think we do
Yeah.
have it, but that's just me.
Any other thoughts? Well, I think that I'd be supportive of growing the total pool that we authorize, and I think that maybe what we should do is not necessarily commit to doing this every year, but make it something that's available, see how it goes as a pilot, see if it's well received, see if it works out. If that, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on how
Well,
they
I
want to.
absolutely endorse it. My
Yeah.
thing is I want it to be a little bigger, but
Yeah,
I
sure. No,
100%
understand.
endorse it.
We could
'cause
also kind of
yeah.
kick it for further
Yeah,
discussion at the next
closing
meeting
costs
too,
can
and
be
do some
such-
research into.
it can be such a sort
Yeah.
of buzzkill when you're at the finish line and then you've
Yeah.
got this, because you spend so much to get a house and
Right.
go to everything's expensive, and then you get this, it's almost as though it's an insult to injury, because you're at the finish
Yeah,
line and then
no,
you
I
get
hear
all
ya.
these application costs, and you're like, what is this? So, yeah, that's why I think, I mean, not only endorse it, I would
Sure.
hope that we would go a
Yeah.
little further than that.
All right. Well, far be it from me to want to be the Grinch to try to limit the budget, but yeah. Any other thoughts on this? Okay. Well, we're not anywhere near any of these units closing, so I think maybe what I'll do is I'll propose that we table this. I'll do some research into what like the mandated fees kind of have come out to be the last few times this has happened. I won't be able to get information about it Revere because it has been forever since it's happened. But I'll reach out to Malden, I'll reach out to Chelsea, I'll reach out to Everett, try to collect some information on this and see if there's some comparable numbers that I can present. And we can come back and we can figure out, what makes sense and if we want to cap it per project or if we want to just have a pool and, tap into it as needed, we'll do some research on that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so I'll move to table this. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second.
Okay, any objection? Okay, seeing none. Okay. Thank you for that. Other city updates, you've got pretty much all of them, so I have nothing else for you. Any additional late items that anyone wants to bring up? Okay, and public comment, seeing none. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Yeah. Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor?
aye.
All right, any opposed? We'll see you in a month. All right, thank you.
Thank you.